The EU wants the UK to agree to a treaty that preserves at least a large part of the bloc's existing fishing rights, but Boris Johnson should not cave in to Brussels' demands, and for a fundamental reason, former Conservative Party Minister Patrick Nicholls claimed. There has been much speculation that the UK's deadline date to have an EU trade deal completed will be extended past December 31 in light of the coronavirus crisis. However, Downing Street has repeatedly said there would be no change to the deadline as it is enshrined in law. The UK is currently in a transition period where it operates still by EU rules, despite having left the bloc on January 31. While the logistical challenges of conducting sensitive discussions via video conference can easily be overcome, there are still significant differences between the negotiating positions of two sides. Brussels still insists on maintaining its current fishing rights in British waters and wants London to agree to a number of EU regulations, including environmental standards, workers' rights and state aid rules. On the other hand, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is demanding the right to diverge from the bloc's rules in order to strike trade agreements around the world. Moreover, Britons are not likely to forgive him any concessions on fishing, as since elected, Mr Johnson has promised to get back control of our waters. In a report for the Brexit think tank Red Cell titled Putting the Fisheries Negotiations into Context, former Conservative MP Patrick Nicholls claimed it would actually be wise to give the EU a generous deal on fisheries in exchange for something else, as fishing is a minuscule part of our economy. Within a year of entering the House of Commons, Mr Nicholls was made a parliamentary private secretary to the Home Office Minister David Mellor, and subsequently to the Minister of Agriculture John Selwyn Gummer. He then served as a junior employment minister between 1987 and 1990 and as a junior environment minister in 1990 under Margaret Thatcher. Mr Nicholls argued that if it was just a matter of money, and if the UK's motive for leaving the EU was based simply on perceived economic advantage, it would not be a bad approach. He wrote, "At first glance, that is a no-brainer. Britain's fishing industry is minuscule. It represents just 0.1% of GDP. And no wonder. Since Edward Heath signed away our fishing grounds to the EU to compensate them for the fact they had all but fished out their own waters, our share of the allowable catch in UK waters has decreased to just 25%. The remaining 75% is taken by the EU. By contrast, our finance industry is vast. It amounts for more than 10% of GDP, creating in the process literally millions of well-paid jobs. The tax revenue it generates is vast." However, Mr Nicholls claimed that the Brexit project is not and never was about the money, and that is exactly why Mr Johnson should not cave in to Brussels' demands on fishing. He explained, "The Brexit project is about restoring morality to politics. It's about restoring to the British people the right to govern themselves by electing and dismissing the politicians who govern their lives. How did they ever lose that right?"